If you don't know, now you know. Now you are more in the know. What's up, everybody? Man, what a crazy weekend. There's all sorts of fighting shenanigans happening over the weekend. Obviously, I touched based on the Jake Paul versus Ben Askren fight, and that was a complete flop. So I'm going to talk about the Ben Askren fight, what happened over the weekend with the UFC, as well as what my projections are heading into UFC 261 in Florida. It's going to be a sold-out crowd in Florida. The first time the UFC is back with fans. I'm sure the fighters are excited. I know the fans are excited. The ticket prices are pretty proud. UFC is pretty proud, but that's going to be the case with most live events as things get back to normal. I don't know if we'll ever see a back to normal. I think we're going to be seeing a separation amongst people, but that's not what today's podcast is about. Today's podcast is a fight companion. This will essentially be my first official fight companion, but a second one because really the Jake Askren, the Ben Askren Jake Paul podcast was my first companion, my first fight companion. So today, what do I want to talk about? Well, Ben Askren fought Jake Paul this weekend on Triller. First off, I did not spend the $50. I didn't get ripped off, and there has been word that that was the most pirated event of all time. I watched it for free, and if you were at home and you watched it for free, good on you. And if you paid $50, you got absolutely ripped off. I'm not going to comment on any of the fights leading up to the Askren fight. All I saw was the live updates. I didn't watch the fights myself. Seemed like a big flop to me. So obviously Triller is not in the big fight business. The announcing during the Askren fight, Michael Buffer getting Askren's name wrong. You know, Snoop Dogg has no fucking business talking about fights. Mario Lopez, like the announcers that they had. I mean, it's just I don't know why anybody would pay the money to tune in and watch that type of fighting. I'm glad that I was able to watch it without having to pay the fee of $49.99. And if you did, just don't make the mistake twice. That's the thing about making mistakes is if you make it once, that's fine. Make it twice, that's on you. So my thoughts on the Ben Askren Jake Paul fight are this. First off, if you reached out to me and said, I told you so, go back to fucking elementary school. I don't need these I told you so messages. Shit happens in fights. I probably got 30 I told you so messages, and then I also received messages that said, man, looks like Ben flopped, or Ben, it was rigged, or Ben took an easy shot to get that bag. All right, so was the fight rigged? I don't believe it was. I don't think the fight was rigged. This is what my take on the fight and what happened was. I'm gonna give Jake Paul some credit. Jake Paul's an athletic guy. He seems to have a fairly hard overhand right, and he hits fairly hard, but he's fairly athletic. Ben Askren by no means is really that great of an athlete, and especially not a boxer. He's a grappler. I thought Ben would just win on mere toughness. His boxing was complete dog shit. He showed up to the weigh-ins. He didn't look prepared for the fight. And you know what? He cashed out. So I'm happy for him and his family. And he lives and dies by the sword. He's had some embarrassing moments happen to him. He's been on interviews right back the following Monday after the Saturday fight. So I got to give kudos to Ben. He's not afraid to put himself out there. And he just keeps this just level-headed, neutral mindset the entire time. So kudos to Ben. The fight itself, man, it was pretty elementary in terms of what had happened up to the point where Ben got clipped. Meaning the 1-2 combos and the setups that Jake Paul were using weren't anything flashy. He looked good. He just looked crisp. He stuck to his fundamentals, and he caught Ben with an overhand right because Ben kept his left front hand, his jab hand, down by his damn hip, man. Get your hands up, bro. Get your hands up. And he threw a hard shot, clipped him. He got up, and the referee seemed to stop it. I thought it was an early stoppage. Did Ben actually get clipped by the shot? Yes. Was the fight rigged? No, I don't think the fight was rigged. I really do not believe that Ben Askren, his pride is much, much greater than to get flopped by fucking Jake Paul. Now, what does this mean for the future of boxing, the future of Jake Paul? I don't know. What it means is that we got to hear this Jake Paul character say that he's a fucking fighter and that he's tough for another year or 6 months or however long it takes for him to fight some other bum. And I'm not saying that Ben was a bum, but Ben was the lowest hanging fruit. He's 40 years old, 36 years old, coming off of a hip replacement surgery where he gained like 40 pounds, hasn't been able to train, and Ben has never, ever been any sort of striker in his career. Good call on Jake Paul's end for picking the fight. He picked a good fight that he knew that he had a good probability to win. Ben carried a lot of the fight attention. Ben is a high-profile guy in the MMA community. The MMA community definitely wants to see Jake Paul lose. Good call on Jake. Good call on Jake Paul and his team for really building this fight, picking the right opponent, and getting him fucking paid. Really, that's all this is. It's just prize. It's like prize exhibition. I don't even want to call it prize fighting because, like, Jake Paul's not a fucking fighter. Like, Jake Paul's beat up 3 guys that really aren't fighters, and he's cashed out. Jake Paul can be an entertainer, but I think the event itself was complete trash. The commentary was trash, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the upcoming months. The Whitaker versus Gastelum fight. The Whitaker versus Gastelum fight was fucking awesome. I can't believe that I wasted my time and energy to tune off from that fight to try to fucking illegally stream the Ben Askren Jake Paul fight, where it took me so long to look at something that was complete trash, where I missed a round or two of the Whitaker-Gastelum fight. Thank God I actually was able to go back and watch that fight because that fight was phenomenal. Now, if you want to see 2 elite athletes in the fucking cage beating the absolute hell out of each other, those 2 went to war, and I tell you what, Whitaker is looking as good as ever. He looked crisp. He looked clean. He looked like that old Whitaker that he was before he lost the belt to Adesanya, and I just really feel that leading up to the Adesanya, he was just ready to lose that belt. He had 2 wars with Yoel Romero that anybody's career probably would have been ended after those 2 wars. I mean, he spent 50 minutes in a cage fighting Yoel Romero, which nobody has really done in absolute wars. Adesanya fought Romero, and it was the worst fight potentially of UFC of all time. So Whitaker's looking phenomenal. I'd really like to see Whitaker step up and maybe fight Adesanya for the belt. If not, fight Marvin Vettori. I know Marvin Vettori wants to jump ahead of everyone and fight Adesanya, but it'd really be interesting to see how that weight class pans out. Heading into UFC 261, I'm excited. Yeah, the 3 title fights on the main card. We're going to have Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade. So, Valentina might be the best striker of all of UFC, men or female, male or female. Valentina's striking is top notch. I think that she's going to get a first or second, I would have to say second round TKO over Andrade. Andrade coming off of losses to Rose, but she also beat Rose and that overhead dump smashed Rose right on her fucking noggin, which was sick. But I just don't think Andrade has what it takes to beat Valentina. I think the only person that really has what I would like to see, this is kind of setting up something really cool, is if in the co-main event, Weili Zhang is taking on Rose Namajunas for Thug Rose. Rose Namajunas is probably going to be the underdog in this fight, a big underdog, so I wouldn't take your money and bet on her. Weili is the future of that weight class. Weili is strong, powerful, fast, and physical. Weili had a nasty fight with Joanna, her last fight, where Joanna turned into Megamind. And I tell you what, Zhang is a bulldog. I was just watching some highlights. She's on a consecutive, I believe it's 21 win fight streak, a 21 winning streak. That's unbelievable. She obviously comes from China. She's a badass. I would take my money and put it on Weili in this fight. Packed house, packed arena, things are going to get crazy. I don't see that fight going longer than 2 or 3 rounds. I think Weili's just going to be too much for Rose. In the main event, this is Kamaru Usman and Masvidal number 2. I believe the first fight was just a huge money ploy. Masvidal stepped up on 6 days' notice, and it was a fucking boring fight. Usman did what he needed to do. He wrestled him down. He held him against the cage. He slowed Masvidal down. He foot stomped him. Wasn't very impressive, but Usman does what Usman does, and he just finds a way to win. I think that this fight is going to be a little bit different in the early rounds. If Masvidal can't knock out or TKO Usman in the first 2 rounds, Usman once again is going to become champion. He's going to wear out Masvidal. He's going to be too strong, too physical. And he's just too dominating for Masvidal, especially as the rounds go later, and he's able to continually get takedowns. If he's able to get takedowns over and over and over again, Masvidal is in a lot of trouble. We're not going to see Masvidal be early in the rounds. We're going to see Masvidal be able to get up from those takedowns. Later in the rounds, Masvidal is not going to be able to get up from those takedowns, and Usman's just going to be very, very dominant like he was in the first fight. Obviously, the big storyline behind this is Masvidal. The big storyline is Masvidal has a full training camp. He came in on 6 days' notice, which was, obviously a really good padded game plan, because if he lost, then he had the 6-day notice thing, and obviously it sets up for a second fight. I don't like this fight, to be honest with you. I think the welterweight division is a bunch of just, man, I don't know what they are, but I really feel what needed to happen was Colby Covington should have fought Jorge, and Jorge, then the winner of that, fought Usman for their second time. That would have made the most sense. Obviously, Covington versus Masvidal is a huge draw. Now, if Usman wins this fight and Masvidal loses this fight, if Masvidal loses this fight, the steam behind the Covington fight is kind of lost, because Covington is coming off of a win over Tyron Woodley. And if Masvidal loses, Covington's not going to fight a loser. So that's going to be very interesting. Then we got Leon Edwards in that mix. But what should have happened is Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. That might possibly been the biggest pay-per-view of the year. That should have been the fight to make. Even though it's not a title fight, that should have been the fight to make with all the beef. Covington coming off of a win. Masvidal coming off of a loss. The first loss, but on 6 days' notice. And the winner of that should have fought Usman for the second time. That would have made the most sense. But who am I? I'm just a guy that does podcasts for the 50 or 100 viewers. So, with that being said, there's a lot of great fights on UFC 261 in Jacksonville Arena in Jacksonville, Florida on Saturday, April 24th. I'm excited for fans to be back in the arena. You're not going to be seeing me at a UFC event in the near future. The ticket prices are absolutely ridiculous. I think the nosebleeds start at $500. And they're all the way up to $10,000 to $20,000 for tickets. Obviously, regardless, I would never pay that for an event. I think the best seat in the building is at home, watching it from the comfort of my couch, my apartment, the air conditioning. Obviously, the atmosphere is going to be absolutely nuts. So tune in on Saturday. That's a pay-per-view card. And it'll be interesting to see what the future for Jake Paul is. I know Ben Askren is going to be retiring. And if you guys have any more fights that you want me to break down, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to More in the Know, because if you don't know, now you know. Now you're more in the know with yours truly, Josh Morin. Behind me, you can see I'm in the Field Supplements Lounge for the highest quality products, the cheapest prices, the best bang for your buck. We have 20 different products to choose from, a variety of supplements that suit and fit anybody's specific goals and requirements inside and outside of the gym. You can check out fueledsupplements.com. Use code FUELED15 for 15% off. And you guys have a beautiful day.